Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally, and you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Finally Clicked. I am so thrilled to be back in the studios with Jesse D. Moore.
Thank the ever-loving God.
I wish maybe just in this episode I could share a couple blips of the episode that you guys recorded on Friday.
Yeah, I just want to explain. I want to apologize to our listening audience because, hey, I take it like
You ever take it very seriously.
I didn't want to not post a podcast.
Yeah.
I had every intention of posting a podcast. We made time for it. It just was not our best work. And from an audio engineer standpoint to...
audio engineer.
to just, carving time out of your day to listen to us try to get it on the tracks. It just, it wasn't... I couldn't hold it to the same standard that we've held every other podcast.
No, I thought when you texted me and told me that, I thought, this is how we operate. We've done a couple episodes where we were like, no, let's not publish that. And I think when you feel that in your gut, we just have to follow it because we don't want our listeners to listen to something that's...
I tried to do Jesse in a jiffy, your moments with Mo type thing, which, are you medicated or something? How do you... I don't understand how you do it.
What do you mean?
You know how anxious I get being in here by myself and then having to speak my thoughts without any sort of feedback or it gets me so anxious that I can't even I could describe a concept or an idea, but then I would not trust myself beyond that.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why? Just because the lack of feedback?
Yeah, I think so.
Huh.
So anyway,
because when I think about when you teach, I know you have feedback from people in the crowd, but it's not always immediate. And you, you're following along with something that you've written out, which was, that's what I've done when I've done those many moments.
The thoughts in my head are so random that I don't trust them. So I like it. I like it when you and I have a conversation because you keep me on track.
Well, and you keep me on track.
Even when you're here, I'll be like, what was I saying? And so if I don't have you here, then it's like a padded room session. So anyway, we tried to do that, and then we tried to do a podcast, and so I wanted to publish one without you, but we had just started this series, and I think the series is very important.
Yeah.
And then to just crowbar in a podcast in between.
Yeah.
What happened, everybody, was Margaret left for a week, and we didn't really know it was happening. We knew it. We just didn't know it.
It snuck up on us.
It snuck up on us, and then Friday before you left, you're like, oh, man, I'm gone.
I literally forgot. Yeah.
And so we were... not prepared.
Yeah. No, we've been so purposeful with all of our episodes, and we now are over 50 episodes. We've been very purposeful and intentional, and So I talked a lot about our podcast last week, actually, and there's quite a few people that are going to listen to this, the step one of this series about your team building, because it was just so relatable, and so it was cool to be able to talk about it. And
right. So I just, we just decided. We're going to pull the plug on last week's podcast, wait for Margaret to get back, and resume our series. So that's what we're doing. But, hey, if you had nuggets you wanted to share, feel free.
Nuggets from?
The podcast that we recorded that we didn't air.
Okay, yes, I might. You want me to share them now?
Well, that's how we started this conversation.
Oh, okay, because I thought I might pop in some audio feeds from little blurb. But when I was listening to it, I skipped through parts of it to kind of see, and I could tell that the beginning, Jaggles had told me that the beginning started around 195 or 210, on the GarageBand track or whatever. And I could tell, in the beginning, there was something about chewing chips, and the audio and
I know. It sounded like we were in a 1970s garage. And then Jagel started eating potato chips. And I'm like, what is happening here? And eventually we ended up having a really good conversation, but it took so long to get there.
Yeah. Well, and then I always forget too, because those girls, two of our close team members, I feel like I've known them for much longer than we have, and we haven't been on the same team for that long. I mean, Jessica, it's been 9 months now or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you and I just started this rapport.
No, and we also are used to speaking in front of people.
Yeah.
Not even in front of people, just speaking.
Yeah.
And you put a microphone in front of either one of those two,
Yeah.
and they get all Twitter-pated, like they're going on a first date or something.
I know, it's so cute.
It's cute.
They're both going to be, they're good as well. Like when they're comfortable, they just need to get more comfortable in front of people. Yeah. They're very well spoken though. Well, I'm thrilled to be back. Literally thrilled to be back. So.
Well, we're thrilled to have you back. Life can resume
as
normal now.
Yeah.
Goodness. Okay. So we are doing a 5-part series on team building. 5 steps to building a top producing team in 18 months is a class that I used to teach. Previous episode was step 1, which is mindset. Everything is mindset. Mindset is everything. And the order of these steps is important. And I think you have to have each one kind of in this order. That's my belief. But without much ado, let's
jump into
just
dive right
step
in.
2. We'll start step 2 with a story. I'm a little bit embarrassed.
Story time.
I'm a little embarrassed to tell this story.
Why?
I always get embarrassed telling this story.
Why?
Because it's inappropriate to some degree.
I think it's totally
Well,
appropriate.
it's not inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's just, you know what?
It's entertaining.
I don't know if you know this about me. I grew up on a ranch. And there's things about growing up on a ranch that are just a way of life that people don't talk about. Like, I had to clean the corrals of horse crap often, right? And it was just a part of my life, but it's not something people talk about. They don't have regular conversations about horse dung or cleaning things up, right? And then, we used to preg test cows, so you'd have to lose your arm inside the cavity of a cow and try to check for a fetus. I mean, there's all sorts of things that happen, and I guess as a kid, it's a great way to learn about everything.
Yeah.
The birds and the bees and the horses and the trees. You get an understanding of life and nature, and in certain aspects of that are not popular conversation topics.
Oh, sure.
So
for people that
I guess
didn't grow
that's
up,
what I kind of mean. I'm gonna tell a story to illustrate a point, and this is how it happened. Okay, sometimes my awareness comes in weird ways, and we're gonna be authentic and not try to dance around it, I guess.
Always, yeah.
So I was once part of a business group. It was a men's group that met in the morning once a week. And I was asked to join by my pastor at the time. And the concept is that these are all CEOs of companies. These are all businessmen, leaders in business, including the pastor. And the pastor would say, without apology, would say that he was the CEO of the church, and the church is a business in that it has expenses and they have income, and they have to be able to have a budget, and they have to hold to that budget. They have to worry about things like growth and hiring and training and many of the same things we have to worry about. They have to. I think
people don't often think about that too. Just to say like how much of you actually have to operate
like a business. Yeah. And I know, and it's almost, I would know some people would say that as like a slanderous thing to say is like, well, a church is just a business. Like it's just about money and that's true of some churches. But But
I would say the same about nonprofits too, just to say, like, I've heard people in business that say if only nonprofits knew how to operate more like a business, same for churches, like it could be a lot more successful. And
well, for a pastor, this pastor in particular, it was important for him to be able to have a vision for the church and to feed into his employees, his staff members, and then they would have to plan. They would have to do marketing events. They would have to do all sorts of things to try to reach the community and get the community to come to the church.
yeah,
And so their concerns were not dissimilar to ours. How do we reach more people? How do we make sure that our staff feels valued and appreciated? How do we make sure we hire the right people? So I was invited into a business breakfast group, and at one of those early meetings, the pastor came to us and said, I have a problem. And he could see that he was at a place where it's been a number of years, so I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. But essentially, he was
forecasting massive
growth. He was saying essentially that based on some metrics that they measured, that he could see their growth expanding by like 30 to 50%,
which is huge,
over the next 18 months or something like that.
It's always 18 months, by the way.
And so he
I was
said,
impressed, by the way. I was just impressed that this group was happening, that he came to you guys with stuff like this. I think it's good.
And so he came to us as business owners and asked an open question, which was, if I know that we're going to grow by 30 to 50% in the next 12 to 24 months, what do I need to be looking out for? What do I need to be planning for? What do I need to be executing now? And so I looked at him and I said, you need to hire a bull.
My favorite part.
And he looked at me like, what? And so he goes, Jesse, I don't understand what you mean. And I said, well, okay, just hang with me for a second. So growing up on a ranch, we had a cow-calf operation, meaning that we didn't raise cows to slaughter to butcher, right? What we did is we had cows and we made more cows. So we would impregnate cows and then they would calve. And we would raise those calves to be 7 to 9 months old, and then they would sell. So it's very idealistic work for a rancher, because it's not a feedlot. It's very much cows on an open range, and you're working them on horseback, and it's very romantic, idealized cowboy lifestyle. And one of the things that I learned is that, for instance, as a ranch kid, you learn that the bulls don't hang out with the cows year round, and it's not like that. It's not like a co-ed college campus. Okay, the women, the cows are sequestered most of the year, and then, let's say around May or June, you release the bulls into the herd for 3 to 4 months. And it's always an interesting thing to do, because bulls, imagine these bulls, imagine like 5 frat boys, like
oh my God,
together in a group, and
I can imagine.
And they don't see any girls for like 9 months, and then they all go to the same party where there's nothing but girls, and it's just the five guys, and they get kind of
excited,
drunk on their hormones and the testosterone, and then you see them smashing furniture and doing weird behavior. That's what bulls are like. When you first put out bulls on a herd of cows, it's quite the scene. Anyway, my point is this. By being a ranch kid, I learned that bulls can only service about 25 to 30 head of cows, meaning that if you had 100 head of cows and you wanted them all to be fertilized by the end of the summer, you would have to release, I would say, 4 bulls into that herd.
Yeah.
Because you can't release 1 bull into a herd of 100. You'd only have 25 pregnant cows. So
I can just say right now that there's going to be a solid group of people who really get you. And right now, Kalen Hubbard, I know it's a shout out, but I can't help it. He will get this because he legitimately wants to take me deer hunting when I come to Missouri, and he will understand this concept.
Well, and other people, you know,
if you're
you just
city
learned
folk
something,
like me,
okay?
you just learned something. Yeah, I just learned something.
All right. So my point to my pastor was you need another bull.
Yeah.
You don't have enough staff members
No.
to manage the client base that you have.
Thinking ahead.
And to create a great customer experience for them.
Yep.
So
which is super
you
important.
need to hire more staff, essentially. And as we ferreted this idea out and as we talked more and more about it, what I was really intrigued by was, hey, how do you know you're going to grow by 30 or 50%?
Yeah, that's intriguing.
And because I'd love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to go, you know what, we're going to grow next year by 50%.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That's a real humdinger. I don't know what I should do about that. That would be awesome.
I would love that problem.
And so I asked him about it, and he goes, how do you know that you're going to grow by that much? And he said, I know because I've created enough margin in my life for it to happen. And that word, just that word, margin, like hit me like a ton of bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got really focused on that word. I just got focused on that word, and I started to like deep dive what margin meant for business owners. And what I came to realize, if you didn't get this cow analogy, let me go at it a different way. Consider your business like a potted plant. And when you first have a seedling and you grow it, it might be in a small pot, right? Like the size of a quart.
Yeah.
And as it grows, it'll grow to the capacity of the pot, and never. And
then the leaves will start to yellow, which I've experienced.
If you don't repot that plant, the leaves will start to yellow and actually start to atrophy.
Yeah,
and
it's really
die.
confusing.
So your business is a potted plant, and it'll grow to the capacity of its pot. And if you are a single agent, and you are doing listings, and you're doing buyers, and you're showing houses, and you're going to home inspections, and you're doing all the marketing, and you're paying the bills, and you're doing all this all by yourself, it's really hard to grow your business past a certain point because there's no room for it to grow. You've filled your day with every task, every opportunity that you can. There's only one of you, and you've done everything you can. And so then your work, your personal life begins to suffer. Your friends, any time with friends begins to suffer. Any alone time or self-care time begins to suffer. And the reason for that is because you're spending all your time focused on work. And as a single agent, one of the most common requests I get is like, how do I get more balance in my life?
Yeah.
How do I make it so that I can have time to have dinner with my family or see my kids grow up? And this is something that I had as a challenge myself. It's easy for me to work like 18 hours a day. When I get passionate about something and I have something to do, I can do it from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. And that's not a healthy way to grow a business. You need balance. And so I have all these agents saying, how do I get this balance back? Well, the only way you can get balance back is either lengthen the time in each day, which isn't possible unless you have a time machine.
That would be amazing.
Or you have to create more time. How do you do that? And you do that with margin. So there's I love this quote, by the way. So there's a book called Margin. It's by Richard Swensen. He's a medical doctor. I don't encourage you to read the book. It's not that great. I pulled out a few quotes that I thought were probably the best meat from the book, and so I'll share one of those with you now. And I believe this 1,000%. Before he even said this, I believe this in my heart. I just didn't say it as eloquently as he did. The excuse of busyness is actually the problem of not caring enough. So, what does that mean? I can tell you exactly what it means. It means that if Margaret's coming to your market center to teach a class and you say you're too busy to go to that class because you have a buyer to show, that means that you just don't care enough about your business to grow it, to take the time or to hire someone to show that buyer so that you can do the important work of working on your business. So
I think I've had this conversation specifically about busyness at least 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And one of them was at our admin mastermind because there were quite a few of the ladies who come regularly who did not read the book that we were reading. And I went on a little rant because they had excuses, and they were excuses of busyness. And I said, I don't come to this every month prepared with no one to talk to about it. If we're not going to commit and prioritize this, I'm not going to commit anymore to this group. And so busyness, nobody needs to say they're busy. It's all about how you prioritize. And if you haven't prioritized me or haven't prioritized your business or haven't prioritized your finances or whatever it may be, to me, you're just saying busy is just an excuse. It's just not a priority to you.
Yeah,
something else came before it.
That's always the case, right? Like with friends, this will happen, and people fall out of touch.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's easy. Okay, right now my kids are 10 to 13 years old, and our lives are nonstop. And I have a lot of grace for our friends that have kids the same age, because you just don't have as much time in the day to hang out with your friends.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because you're running your kids to school and to sporting events and to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and sleepovers.
That's kids' life, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So I understand that. But what you're really just saying is that these other things are more important than those friendships. No matter what, that's what you're saying. Anytime you prioritize, you are saying, this is important to me. This is more important to me than everything else. And so that is true in business. If you regularly don't have enough time, or you regularly don't have enough energy for your client or for a task or for whatever the case may be, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, there's an email you haven't sent yet that has been on your mind for 5 days that you should have sent already. There's a phone call you need to make that you've been putting off and you haven't made yet because you've prioritized other things over it. And then it becomes weird and awkward when that 5 days turns into 2 weeks, turns into a month. And now it's really weird and awkward because you didn't prioritize that person. And now it's they're painfully aware and you're painfully aware that this should have taken place a long time ago and it's not happening. So
it also reminds me of that. I forget what quote this is, but people say it all the time. When you say no to something, it allows you to say yes to something else. Or when you say yes to something, it means that you're saying no to a bunch of things.
Are you trying to say that when God closes the door, he opens the window?
No, I wasn't thinking of that specifically, but what's that? Dear God, it's me, Margaret. Yeah, I think that was one of your quotes from the podcast episode last week.
So where do we go from here? So I would say then a good way to understand this, or a good way to kind of understand why you need margin in your life, is let's discuss the Pareto principle. So Pareto was an Italian economist, and what he did, this is hundreds of years ago, and he studied the land, who owned the land in his country, and he found that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population. He found that 20% of the landowners owned 80% of the land. And he developed a principle around that. And it's proven to be true in sales and in many other industries. And it's true in auto sales and it's true in real estate sales. That essentially 20% of all real estate agents sell 80% of the real estate. So, and that's true. If you go to a car lot and you talk to the sales manager, 20% of his staff is responsible for 80% of the sales. That's how it works. Now, if you think about your day and you apply the Pareto principle to your day, this is also true, or to your business. 20% of your activities yield 80% of the results. That means 80% of your activities only yield 20% of the results.
Makes me so angry.
So if you're trapped in this cycle at work where you don't have time, you aren't sending emails, you're not doing the actions and the activities that you know you should be doing, then what you need to do is you need to take a quick look at your priorities on a daily basis, find out which ones are yielding you the most results, and then hire someone to manage the rest. So this is how you discover where you need margin in your life and what you can put down so that you can go up. So for me, this is true emotionally as well. And it's true for everyone else emotionally. Meaning that if you're spending your time doing activities that yield the most results, you feel happy, you feel fulfilled, you feel like you're in flow, everything happens naturally. If you're instead spending your time on the 20% results, then you're going to get frustrated and angry and upset, and it's going to take you out of flow.
I think the other thing that this reminds me of, which I love this slide that you bring up in your class, is that the reason that I spend so much time focused on personal development with admin is because I tell people, like, we could talk for hours on end about CRMs, about drip plans, about operations manuals, about all these details, but none of them actually matter if you're not going to do the work. And a lot of times people do all sorts of things to avoid doing that 20%. Like, they could feel so in flow if they had the self-discipline, if they're not, like, people avoid, like you said, sending an email because not only because they just don't want to do it, but because maybe there's something emotional behind it. Like, they don't want to talk to that person, or they've had a disagreement or something like that. So much of it actually ends up being it's something that came from you and you didn't even realize it. This is huge. Like, so many people are not working in their 20%. It's incredible.
All right, so I want to go back to the potted plant. Well, actually, let me share another quote, because this goes with our last quote that we talked about, where we said that busyness is an excuse of not caring enough.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to decide if now's the best time. I guess I'll read it. All right, this is from How to Run Your Business by the Book by Dave Anderson. Pride causes you to become too dependent upon yourself, never delegating, refusing to empower others, and solving every problem until you reach a point of exhaustion and ineffectiveness. Failing to build a team evinces the arrogance of micromanagement because pride wants to control people, whereas humility wants to serve them. What does this mean?
Boom.
I am a big believer in teams for many reasons, but I'm a big believer in teams in real estate for one reason fundamentally, and that is the client experience. One person cannot manage all the demands of a successful real estate business.
No.
They cannot. And what ends up happening is the client experience suffers, period. So here's my point. If I go up, and this happens often, I'll go into a competitive situation, and the seller's interviewing 4 people, and 2 might be teams, and 2 might be solo agents. By the time I'm done talking to that client, they will not work with a single agent. Why? Because I've shown them how much there is to manage, and I'm showing them how I have a team. I've developed a team to make sure that all those things are watched, maintained, and managed appropriately. And they know one person can't do it.
Yeah.
And so now I've just disqualified all the solo agents because I tell them I believe the team approach is the only way to do real estate. And I want to change the industry, and I want team-based real estate businesses to be the norm, not the exception.
Well, it's kind of like you take the curtain back, because so many people don't really know what real estate agents do. And you take the curtain back and you take them on a short little tour through the business. And within that 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes you spend on it in your presentation, I know for me, as an outsider coming in, when I first saw you do that, all of a sudden, even not knowing it entirely, I knew there was much more involved than I had ever known before. And so I think once you do that, once you reveal that, there's no going back. And they know that if they went to a single agent, there wouldn't be a chance that it would be the same.
And I've said this before, it takes a certain amount of arrogance to be self-employed. It takes a whole nother level to be a real estate agent. I get it. You're selling yourself. That's what you're doing. And so you have to have belief in yourself. You have to believe that you're the best at working with buyers. You're the best at negotiating offers. You're the best at working with sellers. The truth is, you're deluding yourself. You can't be the best at all those things. The fact is, there's someone better than you at all those things. Go find those people and hire them.
Yeah.
And so I knew right away I don't have the patience to work with buyers.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me irritable. It makes them weird because I'm being irritable. You know what I mean? And so, this point, pride causes you to become too dependent upon yourself. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like pride would say, hey, I'm the only person these people want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure that I cover everything for them.
Yeah.
Well, you can't.
Yeah.
So get over yourself. And if you really care about your clients, build a team
Mm-hmm.
to serve them well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I wrote. This is from Jesse. This is by Jesse Moore. People want to work with someone that cares more for others than themselves. That's the heart of customer service. The only healthy way to serve a growing business is to build a team to serve your clients generously.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, our business is a potted plant. It grows to the capacity of the pot.
Mm-hmm.
In order to grow, what do we have to do?
Bigger pot.
Bigger pot. We need to create margin. So that's the point. This potted plant reference is that there's no margin in that pot for that plant to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it can't grow.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to have growth in your life and in your business, you have to create the space for growth to happen.
There's so very few people that want to do that. They get so scared when they get their pots full and they're like, oh, but I can't make another hire. Oh, I can't. Some people, even though agents work on commission for the most part, in most roles, they don't even want to bring on more agents. It's interesting. Like that's a stopping point for so many people.
It is because there's levels to this.
Yeah.
And I have mine that I'm trying to level up too.
Yeah.
And I can level up really well in the first 5 steps.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, I need work. I need to work at it.
When you read that quote of yours, you also reminded me of another similar one that I think is your quote as well, where you talk about your clients respond to your standards, not to you.
That's the myth understanding that we talked about from last week,
okay.
Which is clients aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to the standards you represent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I want to give you an example of what this looks like. As a single agent, you're a single agent. There's one of you. You reach capacity either in the time that you have during the day to work on your business or a lack of growth inside your business. What do? Write down everything that you're doing, all your tasks on a daily basis. Put an asterisk or highlight the ones that are making you the most money out of those. It should be every 2 out of 10 or 1 out of 5 tasks should be a result that, or some sort of effort that is demanding a result. And then anything that's not contributing to the 80% of the results, that's what you are now hiring for.
Yeah.
You're hiring for those things. So for me and for everyone, the first hire should be, quite honestly, a transaction coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Single agent, there's zero reason for any agent that's listening to this podcast to do their own transaction coordination. From day one, you don't need to know it. You just don't. You shouldn't do it. And
I think that's the number one objection that I hear from some newer agents in our office that I talk to. They're like, I just want to know the process. And I say, I appreciate that. You can hand it off right now and still learn the process as you go. Like go to some classes, go to the forms classes, things like that. You do not really need to know it right now.
I don't know how to build a car in order to drive it out of my driveway, right? Like, I know how to drive. I don't have to know how to build the car.
Yes.
This is true of a transaction coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to sell a house. Mm-hmm. You don't have to know how to
keep track of the deadlines.
Keep track of everything.
Yeah.
All right. So that's number one. If you don't, I recommend working with a third-party transaction coordinator until your team reaches the level of production where you can bring it in-house.
And we happen to know a great third-party transaction coordinator.
We know of
company.
several, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to encourage you right now, if you don't have a third-party transaction coordinator and you want one, I'm going to have you reach out to somebody. Who do we have them reach out to?
I'm going to have them reach out to Closer Pros.
All right. So I'm going to guess it's Christina at Closer Pros.
Yeah. I'll put that in the show notes.
Is it Closer Pros LLC or just Closer Pros?
LLC.
Okay. Christina at closerprosllc.com. And here's why. Christina Jagels has a third-party transaction coordination company for those that are in the state of Washington. And if you're outside of that state, please email us as well.
Totally.
Because we know
plenty
other
of people
great transaction coordination companies
around the country
that listen to this podcast and share our standards and our ideals. And we want to make sure to try to connect you with them. Okay, step 1.
That's a huge piece of leverage.
Hire a transaction coordinator. Yeah. Step 2, hire an admin. Agents make a mistake here because they see admin as an expense only. And so some people might hire a buyer's agent first. And that's a huge, giant mistake. I understand why they do it. They do it because it's a sales role and it contributes to the bottom line. Mm-hmm. So they're thinking, if I hire a buyer's agent, now there's 2 people selling instead of 1. Mm-hmm. And they're paid on commission only. Mm-hmm. So I can control my expenses this way. The problem is if you hire someone good, and why would you not, then the pressure of this added business on your existing business is going to make it all come crashing down.
And your example with what happened in your business is that essentially the buyer side doubled when you hired.
Tripled.
Did tripled? Yeah.
No, it went I'll go over those numbers as we go through this series. But I hired Jillian, and I went from 13 sides to 35 in a year on the buy side.
That's so crazy.
So I basically tripled the buyer business.
Yeah.
If I didn't have admin support in place who had developed processes and systems to catch that business and to grow, then it would have been a terrible experience for 35 people.
It's a lot of people.
And it would have crushed our business. Like you'd have to, and I see it all the time. I see it in this market center. Agents making this mistake, and you know what they're doing is they're digging themselves a hole to get out of. Yeah. Because now all these people that use them, they had the momentum of the marketing, they had the momentum of something.
And then you got repeat referral. You want them to come back to you. Yeah.
But if they don't have a good experience, and Lord knows they don't hardly need an excuse to complain. I mean, if you tie your shoes wrong, they might not use you again. So you better make sure everything goes well.
Yeah.
And I tell my agents this all the time. You can make all sorts of mistakes at the front end of a transaction, but you make it at the end, and they'll remember it the rest of their lives. And so we're crystal clear that on my team, on this team, we don't make mistakes at the end. Because
we want to tie a pretty bow on that thing.
Man, if they don't get the key on a pillow, then they might not tell their mom about you.
And that has literally happened. Everything goes smooth until the very last day. And then there's one thing that's out of place. It's just the whole thing is so emotional for buyers and clients that, we want to end it with a smash.
All right. So you hire a buyer's agent. Then what? Your plant grows. Your business grows to the capacity of this new pot. So you hire an admin. Business grows. Guess what? Time to repot it again. So you hire a buyer's agent. And you create margin in your business, and now it levels up. It grows to the natural capacity of this new limit. And then what? Well, now you're so busy on the listing side, and this happened in our business, is I hired an admin and I hired a buyer's agent. They crushed it. Both of them crushed it. And then I needed help on the listing side because that's all I was doing. All I was doing was focusing on listings, and now I needed help because I had too many listings. So I hired a listing coordinator, and that leveled up my business. That repotted my business into a bigger pot. I gave my business room to grow. So every time you hire someone, you are creating margin in your professional world to allow growth to happen. And if you're stifled and you're stymied, and you can't understand why all this effort isn't generating anything, then look and tell me you have margin in your life. Tell me there's margin in your business. Tell me that everybody has capacity to do more.
This reminds me, so I just started reading the book, The Road Less Stupid, that I got from our friend Kevin Kaufman. And in the first 10 pages, they say, if you're feeling stuck or stifled like that, you're typically always just trying to run and look for a result when actually you're not asking yourself the right question. And I was like, I mean, you've said the same thing to me before, but it just was such a good reminder. Like, stop looking for a result and start thinking about what you're not asking yourself about what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's so true. We like look for we just try to
we want the solution.
do a million
always.
different things to try to throw something against the wall and see if
what-
something
yes.
sticks instead of just
Yeah,
like
I'm
slowing down and
totally
reflecting and
guilty
going,
of that.
oh, wait, there's nowhere for my business to grow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then that leveled up eventually. During short sales, I hired a short sale liaison. That was someone who only worked on our short sales. So the most amount of growth we've had in this business came from us creating margin in the business for growth to happen, and it happened exponentially thereafter. So once you do this one time, you're not done. Okay, you don't get to repout your plan once unless you just want to live in a small pot the rest of your life. Why is margin important? So I wanted to really drive this home to agents because I feel like they would wrestle with this a little bit, this concept. And so in that book, Margin, here's the other quote that I thought was worth pulling out. Chronic uncertainty, sustained levels of increased vigilance, or struggling with a mental task are more stressful than chopping wood.
Yeah.
So this is a book written by...
I understand this so much better now than I did years ago.
Why is that?
Because I hadn't experienced this, and now that I've experienced when I did it myself, it takes me down more than any other, more than hot yoga 1,000 times over, more than any other physical activity. It literally, I've realized what the mental struggle like that can do to your body. It's insane. I love this quote.
Yeah, so this is a medical doctor who has studied how stress impacts the body, and he's basically saying for your own sanity, make sure that you have margin in your life, that you haven't colored all the way within the lines. And so, yeah, if you've ever been in a situation where and it didn't look like you were going to have a reprieve anytime soon, just think about that. Think about when you didn't have extra money for like a period of 4 years.
Yeah.
I put myself through college on my own without student debt. And there have been times I drove away from college and I put the last $20 I had in the gas tank. Mm-hmm. But I drove right to a job where I did it again. Mm-hmm. Sustaining that chronic uncertainty for an extended period of time is debilitating. Yeah. And that's what he's saying is that you need margin in your life to create the opportunity for growth.
This also reminds me of, I think it might have been Gary John Bishop who said this. Sometimes people get so used to this feeling that he encourages people to be uncomfortable. Like, look, people get used to having uncertainty, and then it's like an excuse. It's another excuse that they can add to why they can't prioritize other things in their life. And so I think sometimes people resist adding margin because they're just used to it. They're used to this busyness. They're used to this level of stress that feels normal to them. It makes me think of people that have had things happen to them in their childhood, and it's almost hard for them to get out of that, what that feels like, because it's what they're used to. I mean, I just see a lot of people struggle with this, and they like it's their zone.
There's absolutely like a degree of self-importance that comes from being in demand, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels good to be in demand. It feels good to be needed.
Yeah.
And
be relevant.
That's a very unhealthy place to be. Mm-hmm. It's a codependent place to be. Mm-hmm. If literally, and I'm sorry, this happens a lot in real estate. Mm-hmm. A lot of narcissists in real estate. Mm-hmm. A lot of unhealthy mental.
It's a stressful
mentally
business.
Ill people in real estate. And I don't mean mentally ill like, I mean mental illness is a problem for a lot of people. And I just think that because I think our industry can be a breeding ground for extroverted, codependent type issues to come up. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't happen with another person, it can happen with your business where you're saying, I am so busy. You create this like busyness in an effort to feel important. Mm-hmm. And then we've talked about this before. In fact, we have an episode, and you can go back and listen to it called Stop Doing Lists. But think about margin in that way too. And so I have 3 different quotes from 3 different books that talk about stop doing lists specifically. So, How to Run Your Business by the Book by Dave Anderson. He says, adding tasks to your to-do list is not the key to becoming more effective. First, you must begin to stop doing lists. You must decide what you will give up so that you can go up. In Good to Great by Jim Collins, he says, stop doing lists are more important than to-do lists. And in The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, they say, to-do lists tend to be long, success lists are short. If your to-do list contains everything, then it's probably taking you everywhere but where you really want to go. So, you need to hire a bull. I looked at my pastor who said, what problems am I going to have if I can see my business increasing by 30 to 50% in the next year or two? And I said, hire a bull. Why? I said it to that essentially he needed to staff up to service the growing demands of his client base.
Is that what he did?
He did, yeah. In fact, he made a couple key hires at the time.
Yeah.
And he taught me an important lesson that day when I asked him, how do you know your business is going to grow? And he said, I know because I've created margin in my business, in my life, in the church to allow it to happen. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And it's easy as a ranch kid to understand it.
Yeah.
That you can't put all the cow, like if you're, let's say you have 40,000 acres and that feeds X amount of cows. You can't go and plus 10 to that because it debilitates the grass. There's not enough grass, and then not enough grass affects the soil, and not enough minerals in the soil means that it affects future generations of cattle. And so this is really about having a healthy business and growing in an organic way. And if you want to serve your clients well, if you want to grow organically with momentum, then create space to allow the business to grow.
I feel like, so you should definitely read that quote that you got from someone today. And while you're,
yesterday.
It was yesterday. Okay. While you're pulling that up, it just reminds me of, I think Enmei has said this before in our episode 13 with Enmei Mangles. And a lot of people have said this, but when you want anything different in your life, you have to make space for it and kind of move things, reprioritize again. And I mean, for example, for me, I say I want to start dating, and so I made space for it, and I made like accommodations for time.
It's true. It's true. I'm shaking my head because I know stories and I know the reality of what she's talking about. And it's true. You made space for dating, and I mean, you're seeing the results of that too. Like it's not crickets. You're actively dating, and you're allowing time for that to happen, and it's happening.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I got a unsolicited text this weekend from someone. I will say this. Okay, so I haven't been the healthiest person in my life, both psychologically and physically and whatever else. And you don't know what you don't know. And I used to look for a lot of external validation from other people because I think I felt pretty terrible about myself. And so I would and you were great about it because I would teach a class and then we'd get some feedback.
Reviews, yeah. Or
people would send a card and thanking me. And I would see it and then, I'd forget about it. And in a way of reminding me that I have something to say and that people like to listen and it has an impact on people, you started to make sure that those validations were right in front of me at work. So you would compile the cards or the comments and you'd frame them in a way that at any given time I could look up and see. Remember the impact I had on somebody else. And so this is a text that came in from someone that I might hear from every 2 years. And she wrote, I came to your class about 5 years ago, and it changed my life and our business. I would like to come see you and discuss that course and our exit strategy that you so kindly participated in.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's obvious. It's an honor to receive text like that. I like my class. I like to be sacrificial. I like to give back. And I know that I've had a powerful impact on a lot of people's businesses.
Mm-hmm.
When we started this team, we were the first MREA team in the Pacific Northwest. And
for someone to reach out after 5 years.
Well, and I know specifically, I know people that I can see the faces in my class,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see they have bigger businesses now because of it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And there's everything you're gonna learn in these 5 steps. I didn't make up out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost all of them I learned from Keller Williams at some
Mm-hmm.
point, either from Gary Keller or from the reading or from his models.
Yeah.
None of this is new.
Yeah.
But what I did is I just tried to think back, and if I were starting again, what are the 5 things I would do
Mm-hmm.
to ensure to get there faster?
Mm-hmm.
And you just heard step number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Margin. Goodness gracious. I need a drink now.
Step number 2. I like this one.
See, it was worth the wait, everybody.
Well, yeah, and I will publish this today, so they'll have something to listen to. Stat. This is stat right away. ASAP.
Look at you listening to Grey's Anatomy. ER. I got that from ER.
I've had some time on some flights recently to actually watch some shows and movies and
anything
things.
good?
Actually, yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of it right now, but it was
It's not that good then.
no, right? Yeah.
You don't remember the name?
No, I'm so bad with it. It was in a hospital. It was a hospital setting about
TV
these
or movie?
TV, and it was multiple shows, and these kids are dying of cancer. Gosh, yeah. See, I'll have to go back and look at it, but it got me through like a 4-hour flight, which was really nice. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'm going to get this out to them stat because I'm really also excited to talk about the next step. Step 3.
I want to do. I wanted to sing New Kids on the Block right there. Step 1, we can have lots of fun. Step 2, is that New Kids?
I don't really know how that
Step
song goes. It's
by
been so
step.
long.
Girl.
Might have to drop that in.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I want to tease this, and I don't want to say who is doing it just yet.
Oh.
But someone is going through all of our episodes and cataloging what books we reference, what music we reference, what movies we reference, and how many times for each. It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty amazing. And Jesse-isms and word of the week or word of the podcast. Yeah, it's really nice. It's cool.
No
It'll be a cool
Mo-isms?
list. Oh, I mean, yeah, the Mo-isms are like the random weird things that I say, like off the cuff of my sleeve or the cuff of, what that one happened.
Or not entrails.
Oh, shark fins, shark something. Twirls, I want to say. See, I can't even remember what I said. It was magical in the moment. And so, yeah, no, she's created a spreadsheet. It's really cool. We'll be able to share some finely clicked stats with our statistician.
Statistician.
Oh, sorry, statistician.
Well, Margaret, we're very happy that you're back with us.
I'm happy to be here.
I look forward to you taking a shower.
Me too. And not wearing the same dress for 4 days in a row. I mean, I do love this dress, but now I need to look at something else.
No, I was just teasing about the shower thing. That was uncalled for. And that's it, huh? Nothing else to talk about?
I'm trying to think right now.
Let's just end with a reminder that if you want to create margin in your life, the quickest and easiest way to do that is by hiring a third-party transaction coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason for you to be doing that. And I'll tell you why. One, the cost is controlled.
Mm-hmm.
It costs you, that if it doesn't close, it doesn't cost you money.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does close, it's a controlled expense.
Mm-hmm.
So again, reminder to email, hopefully we got this right, Christina
I'll put it in the show notes.
closerprosllc.com. And we will send you some information on third-party transaction coordination, and or we will connect you with someone in your area who does transaction coordination services, or who serves your area.
Yep.
For that.
I think I know. I have someone for literally every state in the U.S.
See,
so.
look at that.
Boom.
Look at us being a resource.
Boom, being a resource.
So,
just a fountain. Or I'm like a jellyfish is what Enme called me. I'm a jellyfish pulsing with information.
You're a pulsing jellyfish
Apparently.
of information.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to see some fan art someday.
Oh, fan art would be cool.
Margaret as a jellyfish.
Of all the things.
Jellyfish.
That's a great idea, actually. We have to do a coloring contest or a drawing contest.
You're a tungsten light jellyfish?
Interesting.
Would you get a tattoo of a jellyfish?
No.
A pulsing jellyfish?
No. That'd be weird. A blob on my body somewhere. If I'm going to get a tattoo, it's going to be, first and foremost, probably, she believed she could, so she did. That's the one thing I've always thought I would do.
Oh, really? I think you can go to Pier 1 and
Get a
they
sign?
should have a tattoo artist there doing just
At Pier 1.
live, laugh, love. And she believed she could, so she did.
Have you seen that tattoo on anybody else?
I mean, she believes she could. I'm just trying to think through this in so many levels. I mean, one, you're talking about yourself in that's like actually like second person. I mean, yeah. She believes she could. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like Integrity Auto, that whole thing, right? That maybe you're trying too hard.
Trying too hard? Putting too
As
much
a
into it?
reminder. You know what? To each their own. I'm not going to tell you what to do and what not to do. Maybe you could get a pulsing jellyfish where it says, like, each of the tendrils, that's the word
Tendrils,
you're
that's
trying
it.
to say before,
Shark tendrils.
is a motivational quote.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So, like, one comes down and says, she believes she could,
okay,
so she did.
I'm driving more
and
a
then
little bit
another
with
one
that.
comes down that says, live, laugh, love. And another one comes down that says, home is where the heart is.
Oh my God, no! Those are not
And
all
another
quotes.
Another one says, been farming long.
Oh, what?
And another one.
To start, like you sound like these are like octopus arms or something. Is what I'm imagining.
Have you seen a jellyfish before? Do you need me to draw you a
picture? It's been a while. I mean, it's just a blob.
It's not just a blob. They have.
Oh, those tendril things. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I have a blank body. So if I'm going to put something on this, I got to make sure I'm like 100% in.
You have a blank body.
I have a blank body. There's a blank slate. There's nothing here. So if I'm going to write something on it, I better make sure like I really want it.
Oh, I just can't wait. I think we should have listener submissions for your motivational tattoo.
That'd be hilarious.
Let's see what I'm trying to think back on some of the things that you
Maybe
said.
we could have that be the voice memo. We ask our listeners to submit.
You're not going to get a Manners with Margaret tattoo?
I mean, that would make me laugh every single time. So that's very possible.
Manners with Margaret.
I think that was an episode favorite for many people.
I mean, that was pretty legit. My favorite part of that little audio snippet that you play is that you say, like, you kind of laugh because you look at my face. I can tell.
I know what you're going to say.
I have it in my head. I have this whole bit in my head all of a sudden of you doing this etiquette class. And then you go, I know what you're going to say. And I go, oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't.
That was hilarious. Hilarious.
Welcome back, Margaret.
Thank you.
Hey, let's go out there and create some margin in our business.
I'm ready.
To allow it to grow.
It's marginized.
No, I will say that here's the thought I want to close on. Whenever I've been given the opportunity to scale back, I don't, for this reason. Like,
oh, sure.
When it comes to staff.
One of the best examples would be when Sarah left.
So Sarah, so we had two people in admin, yourself and Sarah. And our business probably didn't need that level of coverage. And at the same time, I know we're not going to be at this level forever. I want to be able to support a bigger business. And so even this weekend, I'm in my head all the time. And even this weekend, I was like, okay, I'm always going to bet on the business. I'm always going to bet on me. I'm always going to bet on you. And every bet that I place says keep that person because I want to scale up, not down.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think through your class and through experience with the growth of the team, we've really experienced the power of people, and we understand very clearly that nothing happens in our business without that other person, without another person, without someone to fill that role. When you talk about margin, I mean, we've just been fortunate enough to run into some people in our lives who are stuck around for a long time, and now we have, again, another group of people that I just believe are here for a reason. And to let go of that when you know there's something magical there, we just found such great people. I guess I'm just constantly reminded of that. And so it's just smart, because how often do we run into someone that we want to hire? It's not that often. That's why hiring is so hard. People just hire the first person they meet because they're just in pain. Well, thankfully, we've not had to do that a whole lot. I mean, there's times when we've definitely had to, but.
Yeah, so I just, I get playing safe, guys. I get it.
Sure.
I get it.
Were you going to play safe your whole life?
Well, I think as an entrepreneur, it's a thought you have to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to play it safe,
mm-hmm.
but it's a cop-out. And so what I would really challenge people is, if your business isn't growing and you're banging your head against the wall and you're trying a million different things, just take a look at it and make sure that you have margin. Make sure that everybody has margin in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that people aren't sacrificing their time with their family to make things happen at work.
Mm-hmm.
If you have talented people, it should be happening in the time you've given them.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have to be conscientious about this, because without it, you'll have burnout. Why? How do I know that? Because I quoted that message that said chronic uncertainty, sustained levels of increased vigilance, or struggling with mental tasks
mm-hmm.
are more stressful than chopping wood.
Mm-hmm.
You have a whole bunch of wood choppers on your team,
mm-hmm.
and if you're not creating space for the business to grow, they're going to get tired real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And
you know this not only from having the quote, but because we've literally experienced it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we've seen other people experience it. And when you've gone through it, it's much easier to talk about on the other side. But when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to describe exactly how it feels. But now I know what it feels like, and I know how to avoid it better.
See you next week for step 3.